You can train to increase your power.
Or you can lose weight.
Or you can do both. Today, we are looking at power to weight.
What is it, why it's important, and how you can improve yours. As you can see, we've come inside where it's a bit warmer so that we can present you this important data. Now, your power to weight is the ratio of how much you weigh against how much power you can produce.
Yeah, now you might have seen on your TrainingPeaks performance data after a session it being expressed as watts per kilo. So it's the amount of watts that you are putting out per kilogram of body weight. And this can be shown for a distance or a duration of your session. So for example, your power to weight ratio for a 5-second effort, a 1-minute effort, 20 minutes, or even for your full duration of your bike ride.
Yeah, the person who has the highest power to weight ratio for the duration of the event will be the fastest most of the time. It should probably be pointed out that adding or removing a kg of weight from your equipment, such as from your bike, will also affect your power to weight ratio, but it's assumed that you've optimized this at all times, even if you haven't.
It should also be noted that your power to weight ratio will vary depending on the duration of your effort. For example, someone could have a really high power to weight ratio for a 5-second effort, but drop off massively for the hour. And someone on the other end of the scale could be quite weak over the 5-second effort, but really perform well when it comes to the hour duration.
Yeah, the most important metric for a triathlete is their functional threshold power, or FTP. This is the maximum power you can sustain for an hour-long effort, and it's a good indicator of your performance for longer durations. But it's not directly comparable to others, because someone with a lower FTP might actually still be faster than you in the race. What you can do, however, is divide your FTP by your weight, and this gives you your functional threshold power to weight ratio, and you can compare this to others, and the person with the highest FTP power to weight ratio will almost certainly fare best in a race.
Well, before we delve further into this topic, just a very quick reminder to click on the globe, and if you hit that bell icon, you'll be notified every time we have a new GTN video. So why is your power to weight ratio important? I mean, on a flat course, it would be the person who can put out the most power that would go the fastest, obviously once you've overcome the initial inertia and that acceleration.
Yeah, but races don't happen on perfectly flat courses almost ever, and therefore the person who is lighter and leaner will require less effort to move their mass around the course, and therefore they will go faster, both on the bike and on the run.
Well, for comparison purposes, your target power required to win the race needs to take into account your weight.
Yeah, for an average untrained novice, they should be able to hold about 1.5 to 1.8 watts per kg over an hour effort, which equates for a 70 kg person or 154 pound person to about 105 to 126 watts average for an hour.
And then on the contrast, if you take, say, a world-class professional cyclist, well, they could potentially hold up to 5.6 watts per kilo. And if they're also around 70 kilos, then in theory, they could actually hold up to about 400 watts for an hour.
Yeah, and so to put this into practice, if you could hold 3.5 watts per kg at your FTP, that is what you can sustain for a full hour effort, and your friend can hold 3.2 watts per kg for their hour effort, you'll almost certainly beat them on any race that is an hour or longer. And for reference, the pros in Kona are holding roughly 4.0 watts per kg for the entire duration of that 180 kilometers. That is an effort of over 4 hours.
Well, it follows then that if you want to improve your performance, you can do that by improving your power output, or by losing some weight, or even both.
For most people, the fastest way to improve their power to weight ratio is by losing weight. Losing fat mass, even if you keep the same power and the same fitness, will see an increase in your performance. For example, if two riders were going up the same hill riding the same bikes, a 70 kg rider would have to produce 7% more power than a 65 kg rider to go up the same hill at the same speed. That's about 20 watts more.
But of course, losing weight does have its limitations, and it depends on how much weight you have in the first place. If you're someone who is carrying a bit more than maybe you feel you need, then losing weight could be a viable option. However, if you don't really have any extra weight to lose, then not only is it going to be very difficult, but it could even end up being detrimental.
That's right. Having a calorie-restricted diet with not enough calories can actually lead to you losing lean muscle mass, and that is going to do nothing for your power. And getting too lean, that's a body fat percentage below about 6% for males and below about 14% for females, can actually lead to serious long-term health consequences. But don't take my word for it. Here's our resident expert sports scientist, Andy Blow.
Oh, sorry, you caught me having a snack. When I was an athlete, I was racing Xterra back in the year 2000. I was a sports science student at the time, and I was very, very focused on power to weight ratio, because for mountain biking in particular, getting your power to weight ratio optimised is massive for performance. As a result, I was experimenting with less and less fueling around my training, and at first I saw some great results. I dropped weight and I was going really well, but very quickly it turned on its head. My power was dropping, health was suffering, sleep was suffering, and it's a word of caution really, and it applies to anyone who's thinking about their power to weight ratio. You still have to focus on fueling the work that you're doing. There's a famous paper come out of the people at Liverpool John Moores University looking at fueling for the work required. It means that you've got a basic diet that you need to sustain every day, but when you're doing heavy training loads, you need to increase that amount of carbohydrate you're taking in to make sure that you're fueling adequately. So don't think that just cutting weight is going to be the way to optimise your performance in this area.
As Andy says there, from his personal experience, you have to be careful and eat for performance. In fact, going even further, there's actually a delay between weight loss and the health consequences of that weight loss. And in that delay, you can actually see a performance improvement. And this often leads athletes to making the mistake of thinking that their weight loss is good for their performance and they should keep going, they're on the right track. And the exact opposite may be true. Too much weight loss is detrimental to your performance, and the long-term consequences of losing too much weight is not worth the short-term benefits of that performance improvement. So be very careful how much weight you lose and how fast. Always lose weight slowly and in a controlled manner.
Of course, the other side of the equation is to increase your actual power output. So if you do remain the same weight, you work on increasing your power, then you will be able to complete the race distance faster. So with a good training program that covers your aerobic conditioning, works on strength training, and makes sure that you're working the right amount in the correct zones, will end up increasing your power output. So it's important to note here that you need to work specifically for the demands of your event. There's no point in honing in that increased power output for a 5-second effort when your race is an hour or more long.
Yeah. Ideally, you would improve both of these at the same time. And most people have the capacity to do this. By following a good training program and at the same time eating healthily in moderation, you can both improve your FTP, your functional threshold power, and at the same time lose some weight.
In fact, this is something that you can track in TrainingPeaks. In your dashboard, you can track as many as 60 daily metrics and see your progress on a handy line or a bar graph. And you can track these metrics using smart trackers like a Wahoo smartwatch or Whoop fitness tracker, or you can simply enter them manually.
That's right, metrics like weight, BMI, fatigue, sleep, and even body circumference measurements can be plotted on your graph and displayed in relation to anything else. So there really is no excuse to overtrain or undereat as you pursue your performance.
So for example, if we look at that 70 kilo rider we were talking about earlier with an FTP of 245 watts, well, if they lost 4 kilos and worked really hard and happened to gain 15 watts on their FTP, well, in theory, they would move from 3.5 watts per kilo up to 3.9 watts per kilo.
Yeah, and to put that in real world figures, up a 3% grade, that rider would now go about 1.6 kilometers per hour faster for the same effort. And even on the flats, they would go about 1.2 kilometers an hour faster for the same effort. Of course, on the flats, that's mostly just due to the power output improvements. But as we said earlier, no route is completely flat.
Well, your power to weight ratio over the duration of your target race is the metric that you really need to be paying attention to. And if you use this wisely and work purely on this metric, you will end up seeing huge performance gains when it comes to the race course.
Yeah, we hope watching this video has given you some insight on what you should be focusing on to help you be a better, faster athlete. Thanks for watching and happy training.